My goal, I wanted to hit were 1,000 doors a week, and was there for about 6, 7, 8 weeks, so I would say anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000.
That's you personally or the whole team?
That is me personally. I'm not sure how many doors Luke hit while he was on Allen's team. So
You think it would be?
I don't want to try to guess how many doors we hit, but I know myself is 6,000, 8,000.
But you represent, you were the one giving Luke his walk list for where the specific door. You would have some basis of your own of how many doors per day you can get, so on and so forth. So if you were trying to make an estimate of across all the resources, you said 6,000 to 8,000 for yourself alone. For the whole team, what would your estimate be?
And maybe 4,000 of that, so very.
You did a lot better than the other two.
Well, Luke left. He got pulled. So, yeah, I was pretty much the only person. Yeah.
I want to play one other media clip and then I think I'm gonna be done. Okay, so I appreciate your patience with me. And this is gonna be, number 25 feet by items.
Nick Owens claims he'll represent our values, but if Owens is a true conservative, why do conservative groups reject him? Both Ohio Right to Life and Ohio Value voters won't endorse Nick Owens. And Buckeye Firearms Association denied Nick Owens their top rating. If conservative groups won't support Nick Owens, why should we? Do they know something about Owens' record that we don't? What is fake conservative Nick Owens hiding from us? True conservative Alan Freeman has always represented us. Freeman's protection of the unborn and defense of our values earned him the endorsements of Ohio Right to Life and Ohio Value voters. And Freeman's record safeguarding our Second Amendment rights earned him the highest possible rating from Buckeye Firearms Association. Send someone with the proven record to represent us. Send true conservative Alan Freeman for state representative. Paid for by the committee to write Alan Freeman.
Do you recognize the voice that read the disclaimer at the end of that?
I just remember here.
I'm just gonna play it in, so that's the disclaimer part at the very end.
State representative. Paid for by the committee to write Alan Freeman.
Okay,
I just want to make sure you said you didn't understand who that was.
Yeah, correct. Sorry.
That's okay.
okay, so you don't recognize the voice. Did you hear any Alan Freeman radio commercials like that one in your work?
I'm sure I did. But I'll let anyone get to it.
Okay. All right, I think that's all the questions I have for you.
Right.
No,
Mr. McSteen, I understand you held the title of campaign manager of Town Street. Did you have anything to do with creation of the written ads or radio ads and television?
No, sir.
What were your duties other than going door to door and doing some phone calls on behalf of the people?
I think you hit the nail on the head. That maybe try to sign or two here and there, but
What was the purpose of holding that title to begin with?
I think it was just to make us feel good, add something to the resume other than just door knocker.
Do you have anything to do with the finance of the Allen Freeman Company?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you ever have anything to do with helping prepare the campaign finance reports of the Allen Freeman?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you ever have anything to do with reviewing or receiving invoices to the Allen Freeman Company?
No, sir. No, sir.
Do you know how expenses of the Allen Freeman campaign were being paid?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you know if there was a fine to pay?
No, sir. No, sir.
I don't recall whether it was discussed, but there is an email from Constant Contact asking the Allen Freeman campaign to pay $290,000. Have you seen that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Are you aware of, whether you've seen them or not, any other invoices by anyone sent to the Allen Freeman?
No, sir. No, sir.
Are you aware of any in-kind notices by anybody sent to the Allen Freeman?
No, sir. No, sir.
Mr. Hicks, any
Quick
redirect?
redirect is, he asked you a lot of questions about finances, but the key thing relating that I want to ask you, just to reconfirm, is that you never provided information to anybody about how to allocate you as an income expense. Correct? Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and Luke Householder, to your knowledge, is not paid for by the Ohio Republican Party.
Correct.
Okay, that's all. That's all.
Anybody in the commission have any questions?
Yeah, I do. When were you named, Mr. Freeman's campaign?
I don't know a certain date, but I know I went to Claremont County early February.
So the first week in February.
Yeah, yeah.
And during that time, you would agree, you were under the, yes, the instruction and guidance of Mr. Raw from JPL and Associates, is that correct?
Yeah,
Good, that's all.
I have a question for you, Mr. Mancini. When you got a paycheck, who paid you?
it was a direct deposit. I never got a physical check.
You know who made that direct deposit? Was it JPL or was it the Ohio Republican Party?
The Ohio Republican Party.
And as we understand it, sitting here as a commission, you took your direction not from somebody from the Ohio Republican Party, but from Tommy Wolf with JPL and Associates. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Appreciate it.
Acting exhibits. That you on the display on the commercial.
Is that it, Mr. Manager?
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Hicks, next witness.
Now, are you got something about you want to take a quick break?
Are we not going to take?
Well, I thought we already took our little break.
Oh, we don't need a break, I'm cool.
Okay.
I'd like to get as many witnesses done while they're here, so they don't have to come back. Like,
Does anybody in the commission feel they need a break at this time?
Everybody's okay. All right.
Let's do it.
Scott Schweitzer.
Okay. Ron, you gonna get him?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't need to say it. They need a break. Speak up.
I won't make it till 3.
Pardon me?
I won't make it till 3 o'clock. I haven't taken it. I probably another 30, 40 minutes.
It seems like a good spot. Why don't we stop?
Yeah, maybe time for it.
Big truck.
Yeah, let's give her a break.
All right. We are taking a break. How long?
15 minutes. We'll go 1:30.
15 enough for you. Thank you.
Is that enough?
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. There you go.
So great.
We went all the way around.
I know.
What about?
Break.
25 hours. Okay.
Wow, that's a markup.
That's the idea.
I should have brought a bag on down.
Yeah, really.
Unless you got a square, nobody carries cash anymore.
Well, Otto said he was getting rid of cents for us. Or capital.
That was,
No,
that was in
no,
the original
no,
motion, one of
no.
the email responses.
Hey, don't I- worry. October 20th will be here soon.
Are you bringing in next?
Sure. Ooh, probably need to bring 2 dinner bags.
Probably, at least. At least.
I'll be taking orders.
I like that. You like not McDonald's.
No.
McDonald's. You know what's funny is on my phone, I got an alert that it's free fry, whatever day, or National Fry Day. So we like the fries.
Are you talking about after we spoke?
Yes.
They're on you, buddy.
Yeah.
Never go there.
I'm so interesting too, and everybody should be.
Why didn't you wear your black tie?
You're a human.
I mean, you should have, you should have on the part. I didn't wear my black suit.
If I'm.
You didn't, right?
Yeah, if you're a human,
That's.
buy somebody that buys, you're interested.
Because just to have a black tie event for the wedding outside, typically you're doing black tie.
Right, exactly. I'm not that much of an expert, but I know that's supposed to be like.
Nor am I.
Afternoon gear or whatever, you know, that's where you wear teacher gray, you know.
It is, and let's put this to shape more tech.
Because they wanted you to be formal.
Yes, they did.
They wanted you to be formal. Maybe you were
Not-
required.
No.
So I'm at a wedding, we put a live on last weekend, and all of a sudden I hear, hey, it's Stephen's wife and friends. We put a live on.
Oh, my goodness, small world.
Well, I knew you were gonna be there. You put me out there.
Oh, no, we had trade tech. This is the odd thing. Well, the really weird thing was I was getting harassed by my wife and friend because I made arrangements to get an easy pass for us with all the things that they kept saying, we're not going on any toll. What are we doing? Okay, so this is bridge in Newport, the Pell, the Clay River Pell Bridge. It was a toll road. So, all right, we're going to cross it just so we can use the easy pass. Yeah, to get the toll. So we go across, do a little bit, and then come driving back across it. And we're just randomly driving around, and we come along the first corners.
There you were.
They were.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have thought it?
Yeah.
No, Jack was your college.
This has gone shockingly smoothly.
The devil. Coming to some good resolution.
I will say, not only Mr. Otis has done a pretty nice job, in streamlining it.
You know, if you get conflicts, et cetera. This could have been.
Yeah, well, it has been.
No, but it could have been much worse.
Because we had.
Right.
He just said it's a year and a half ago. I think he said. Scored for. Parties. That question about it. You told me that.
Trying to figure out how to be check.
It's becoming few and far between where I actually have to put on a suit and tie. The whole get up.
Here, I don't have to, maybe ever until I'm laying in a moment. In the chair.
Or go to somebody else's funeral. That's your respect. That's your respect. I was at this funeral, whatever, and everybody was dressed up, and then this woman came in, whatever. Hey, man, what are you doing, man? Respect this man. What else?
My wedding this weekend was black tie. Why, I don't know, because we were outside, it was in Newport, Rhode Island, it was outside overlooking the water on their standing, the water, so it was black tie, and what am I doing here?
These are friends, I'm sure that area level.
Beautiful.
Their backdrop and everybody's so elegant looking, I can see that. Picture that right now.
I just said,
Great.
here where you gave me the word.
Now, other than AJ, your daughter,
She works for ESPN up in Bristol, Connecticut.
is she married yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Not even close. She had a boyfriend in Columbus before she moved to Bristol. Be there for at least 18 months, probably going to help them. But after the wedding, my wife and I spent 3 days.
How old is she?
26.
I have two stepsons, they're 28 twins. One is a banker in Chicago, the other one is a PhD working at Lawrence Livermore. They're both single. So, but
Well, my daughter was a film and media student in college. And was a college basketball player. So sports and ESPN kind of puts the whole bill. I don't think she's ever coming back home.
but it's funny.
More than likely.
Although
she's
who knows
loving
what'll eventually happen
so
with
far,
ESPN.
At least what she's doing there.
She loved it. They came in, they were a production, the next wave of new production people. And there were 25 of them, and she and 2 of her other cohorts have been called out as quote unquote new rising stars. They're supposed to now be the leaders of this group because they've done so well for the 2 months they've been there. She goes, that's just not fair to do somebody 2 months in. All you're gonna do is piss off everybody else.
Well, I don't know.
Guess what?
I don't know if she'll be like.
Welcome to life.
But all they care about is. I mean, the one we just went on Chicago this weekend. The show, he took us out to the big bank, took us out to this big steakhouse out there. Out there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My daughter didn't say that.
My son has said that every once in a while, but not that often.
Mine has not.
Although he actually did take us to the athletic club. Laura and I did.
Are
athletic
people
club one
kinda-
time when
I
he
know
had the
they're
quarter.
being very cautious and they want a mask and things like that. Are people out though and doing things now? It's not moving in.
But just about.
That was never remembered
Go
too.
in, it's like, that's about where- No,
Yeah.
yeah.
The conference.
We were down
She got a little chilly, huh?
Yeah, I keep this in the office.
Yeah.
Our office.
Some days are worse than others. Like
Everyone you saw.
We got full of.
Generally speaking, it's not. At least I'm warm with it.
I think it's
Yeah,
better.
they are sorry, you know, You can't come in contact unless you're vaccinated. Download this app.
So these are the last two.
Doing it.
This is got four travel.
You're trying to get your card, and they're making it, and then they go there, show the card, because the one.
So this one. Right, no, this one I still have must.
Yeah, or just pop or something with vaccination. And then it will- wear your mask the whole time. But, and it's hybrid, so, you know, people that feel otherwise, they can still participate in the conference, but they just gotta participate virtually. And that, but the best part about this, because I had to share this with my wife, is they had frequently asked questions. Regarding one vaccine.
And I made sure they all.
Can I still attend?
I got that done the other day, so we're not gonna hold me to hard.
If I had COVID and I put my antibodies, can I attend? No.
We all do it.
I like Columbus, I don't make it here, but.
Yeah.
That's when I get crazy. Not right now.
It was, I like this in my work. You know, so you go into a place like that. It was built.
Really close.
Hey, do we want to talk about settling up on the 28th now?
Once you go out the door, just go straight, it's down really close.
So you want to talk about settling up for the 28th now? That way. Everybody's why, just tell them that it's the 28th.
Yeah.
The best thing about this building is there's a nice standing area right down there.
You need a.
Well,
from 19, we're eating other times.
And the credit card readers always work out.
Yeah.
People would have good meetings, if it's still.
Wait on Mr. Brian.
He's right outside.
He was getting vending machine coffee, he got the coffee without the cup.
That sounds like something right out of.
So I'm watching my coffee pour down the drain.
That sounds like something in a movie, it's going right on your shoes or.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's what we are talking about. Yeah. But you know what I would ask is that
We should,
one of
yeah,
the-
we should talk dates.
right, well, I'm gonna do that. We go to the 28th.
Just go to my calendar.
We want everybody to look at their calendar as far as, you know, potential stop time on the 28th, just to,
No, fine.
just like we.
For the six of us here, we should all confirm, I just did the 28th is okay in our calendars.
I'm waiting to hear back.
Okay.
I'm good, I'm good. Good.
I am as well.
I mean, so when I say we do it, I mean, I know we don't put that on a regular calendar, but it would be weird till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I mean, we don't want that to happen, but I just-
Yes, I don't do my calendar. Waiting on it.
I have to keep mine only because I'm on the court and like, are you available on this day?
I have too many where we're both scheduling at the same time.
We could talk
I
about
still
that.
drive your paper.
But you're executive. I like it.
Everybody else says we're okay.
My husband saw me.
What I'm looking for is, does anybody have any firm stop date on the 28th? Like this time, we need to do the firm stop date at 3 to allow a commissioner to be able to get somewhere, a couple commissioners,
I'm heading out of town the morning of the 29th, so we'll go to.
They're pretty.
What time is your flight? You all the way to.
It's actually a drive, so I could probably push it past midnight.
Maybe somebody could handle it down.
To Michigan.
He's, but the thing is that he.
That's
right.
Oh,
He went to the police on
Their
this.
wedding celebration. that Friday.
Still, I mean, with the thinking being over the 28th that, we're gonna stay with some of the normal things on the 28th, or should we think about just clearing the whole document?
We've already got those out there. You know, if they find us with like cases.
Mr. Hicks, how many more witnesses do you have?
So. I think those.
We don't.
What those groups we go to.
All those.
That's.
I mean.
Maybe do that, and maybe do that first. Maybe do that
Are
first.
the key
He's
ones.
got 6 more witnesses, so we'll
Four are
probably.
the key ones, and I'm trying to get the ones that I know have more scheduling conflicts done now, so that. we-
Okay.
Well, yeah, I can figure it needs some, I think.
Are you talking about the witnesses that are finished?
Who are finished or the ones who aren't gonna make it on tonight?
First of all, we need to check with council to see if he has any intent on recalling any of the witnesses that have been called.
That's what I was, yes, that.
No. So any, Mr. Hicks, any of the witnesses you called are free to leave. And any you don't intend to call today, you can probably release them and tell them the next hearing date will be the 28th.
Okay, and I've told a couple of them that I think there's no chance they're gonna get called today, so.
Who is it?
Nick Owens, Steve Caraway. Wayne Gates, but I don't know that here. So, and then my next 3 are Scott Schweitzer, Dave Ward, which would be quicker, the Secretary of State guy, and then Susan Jones. So I don't know if we wanna. Those are the 3 big ones. The 2 big ones out of 3 of those, Dave Ward could be. quicker.
Well, Jones is journalist.
Oh, yeah, okay, so that's not it. So let me see, here's a good point. So if we unbelievably sped up, I try to get it care of it,
Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Bryan, but how many witnesses do you intend on calling?
Well, I intend to have it dismissed as the case, but if that doesn't happen, probably 2 or 3.
I'm just thinking from a timing standpoint,
From time standpoint,
an hour or 2?
yeah, I think in an hour, I can get them.
That means something is.
He's heard this.
I've worked.
Yeah, I think they're,
Is Steve supposed to share with me who the witnesses were that he's going to call?
well, I don't know who the witnesses are gonna be. If he calls Stephen Jones, I probably don't need to call him. If he testifies himself, I won't need to call him.
I'm just thinking about timing for our next meeting. That's all reason I was asking.
I'm just thinking of the convenience of the other parties for the hour and a half left for today.
It sounds like,
And the realism associated with having them hang around when they're gonna have to come back.
I think that Scott Schweitzer will take some time. So if we wanted to say to try to get Scott Schweitzer and Dave Ward, and then Susan Jones, Stephen Caraway, and the other ones would be the next, then I have like 3 left in there, because I want to also be respectful of people's time that are.
Well, we're here, we intended to go to 3. I say we just keep witnesses and what we get through today, we get through today and we'll finish up what we need to next time.
I'm just saying that to Commissioner Armour, because I think that the 2 witnesses I mentioned will probably get us pretty.
It's
close.
your prerogative to call who you want to call, so thanks for the courtesy, consideration of time. Let's go ahead.
I think we're all done.
I think we're all.
Ready?
Mr. Schweitzer, you would take a seat here and be sworn.
for the record, Ron O'Brien, I'm here representing Mr. Schweitzer. I have no reason to believe based on what Mr. Hicks has represented to me, that there's any reason that I need to be here, but I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. You be sworn in for a third.
Swear the candidate testimony of this today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Mr. Schweitzer, my name is Scott Horn. I'm one of the commission members. I'm partially deaf, so if you would keep your voice up so we can all hear today, okay? Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Mr. Schweikert, thanks for appearing today.
Yes.
What's your role in strategy and media or that group of companies? If you could just explain what your role is.
In the strategy group and strategic media placement, strategy companies, I am the chief operating officer.
The chief operating officer, and that is, can you just help me explain like what is the structure and what are, because there's a couple names I see, is what are the structure and what are the entities?
Structure of our company.
Yeah.
There is a DBA of the strategy group, which is doing primarily TV, radio, digital advertising for candidates, as well as strategic media placement, which is a media buying operation, where they will place airtime on behalf of candidates, third parties, organizations, as well as companies and anybody of ad placement throughout the United States.
Okay, so I get the ad placement part of it, I refer to it as SFP.
That's
Okay.
That's fine.
Then just explain for me again the role of strategy group vis-a-vis SFP.
Vis-a-vis.
I get that SFP as ad placement.
Yes.
I'm trying to better understand what the strategy
The
group is.
strategy itself, we will write, produce, create, consult on the actual ads themselves, as well as provide strategy for candidates in public office.
So strategy group would do, when it comes to ads, would do the
They would
production of the
We
ads.
would do the pre-production, the post-production, any field production that was necessary, as well as any editing, delivering of those products to the stations, anything on the traditional, everything that you would get you.
And, okay, and then what's the operational connection between strategy group and SFP?
Companies, we, technically, strategic media placement is the parent company of strategy.
Okay, so SFP here and strategy group is a subordinate to that, or whatever filing. And you're the chief operating officer for both entities.
Correct.
Okay, so if I refer to it as, is there a name I could refer to that would be the proper name to refer to the combined entity? Given that you're chief operating officer of both, I want to make sure to use my words correctly.
I extract the strategy companies.
Strategy.
Actually, that's not accurate, I'm just saying strategy.
But SFP is the top company.
Correct.
For the sake of today, can I call it SFP or did that mischaracterized? Okay,
That's accurate.
okay, so,
I would object. I think that calling it something that is not might be confusing.
Anybody here confused?
Maybe not yet, but I'm just, there are two groups. The groups, you do plural, I think they'll know what we're talking about.
why don't I address confusion when it never occurred?
Mr. Schweitzer, if you get confused, let us know, please.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, what was the role of SFP in House campaign, Republican House campaigns in the 2020 primary?
In the House campaign forum,
Yes, the process.
we work for candidates and issues all over the United States.
But I just asked you about the Ohio House.
But the Ohio House
Primary for
we
2020.
were engaged as a media placement arm for candidates.
Engaged by individual candidates or engaged with a group of candidates?
It depends.
What is SFP's relationship to Alan Freeman and his campaign? And it's everything I'm talking about is in March in the 2020 primary, Republican primary.
We were hired to place ads on his behalf.
By who?
Through constant
Contact. So, what's in, who from Constant Contact hired you?
would have been Jeff Longstrap.
Jeff Longstrap, okay. Within Constant Contact, were there people other than Jeff Longstrap that you worked with?
Megan.
Megan Fitzwarren. Okay, any other Constant Contact people that you worked with?
That's who I've been dealing with on a daily basis.
Okay. What was your relationship with Megan Fitzwarren specific to the Alan Freeman campaign?
She served as the agent for the campaign, authorizing any expenditures as well as approval on messaging.
So she approved messaging, and when she approved the messaging, did she communicate that to you or somebody else in your organization?
It's me.
You. You also just said that she approved expenditures. Can you help expand on what you mean by she approved expenditures?
We would have budgets and we would ask for mistakes Alan raised. What does it cost to run an advertising campaign? I would give her the total. And we would then, as we did with multiple candidates, have discussions on, how many gross rate points you're going to get behind that message when we are starting gross rate points. So gross rate point is a unit of measure to allow to allow you to know how much reach frequency an ad's going to have. Typically with political candidates, we look for 1,000 gross rate points. What that means is that our target audience of likely voters will see that message on average 10 times. And so it's just a way to look at frequency and repetition. So it takes additional frequency and repetition in order for an ad to be remembered.
So who constant content did you have discussions with on that, with about the Alan Freeman campaign?
Would have been Megan.
Megan and Jim, typically together or separately?
I don't remember specifics. I mean, I know I had conversations with both of them.
Okay, were there meetings with them?
No, either would have been done either over email.
Okay. Okay, so do you remember any kind of, I'm not asking for specific numbers, but general dollar ranges that you told Megan Fitzmartin or Jeff Longstreth that you thought would be needed to get the number of points that you said, whatever?
Not offhand, I'm guessing based upon what budget clearing at Cincinnati right now, I'm guessing it'd be around $140, $150 in the primary for 2020.
Okay, but I'm making more aggregate, like, we had a discussion about it generally going to cost X amount of dollars for this campaign.
Or it would be for a message.
I'm talking the overall Freeman campaign.
I don't recall ever having a conversation about the overall campaign. We would be talking about kind of one ad at a time, and typically how that works is, either you have a budget that you're dealing with, and you can say, hey, how can we best use these dollars for this campaign? Or I'm being told, hey, you have X dollars to spend, what would you recommend doing with that?
Okay, and those conversations that were by individual spot, generally speaking, that you had with Megan and Jeff.
Yeah. I'd say.
Like, do you have any, just as an aggregate, like a typical campaign, ad as a campaign, what kind of dollar range would an individual conversation have been about for a specific ad? Just order of magnitude.
For a state rep campaign or this race?
This race, specifically the Freeman race.
I mean, it would depend on if you're going up on broadcast TV in Cincinnati, Ohio, or if you're only doing cable and Claremont County portion.
Specific to the Alan Freeman campaign, do you have any recollection of a discussion about any particular ad and how much it might cost in any?
Ahead of time? I don't remember having that saying, hey, this is what will happen. Review of emails, I know that we said, hey, we wants to do, I'll do a broadcast TV, what's that going to cost? I guess I'm not necessarily tracking.
Well, I kind of move on, but I'm just kind of asking you, you're talking about these conversations you had, and I'm kind of trying to get at, and do you have any recollection, when you had these conversations that it would have been, like it's going to cost 10,000, 5,000, 1,000. Just the general order of magnitude.
From a broadcast TV standpoint, Cincinnati, Ohio market, you'd be looking at a minimum of $60,000. Otherwise, 60 at a minimum. Otherwise, I would recommend going on broadcast TV. And that is if you're doing 15 to one station down there, leaves XIX that doesn't allow or half cost on 15-second spots. They'll actually charge you a premium if you're running at 15 and not marrying somebody else where you can score. That can it's in the weeds.
No, I just wanted to get that overall magnitude of what was involved. And now, Megan Fitzmartin, I'm gonna make a statement, but I want you to correct me or, so if I understand correctly, she was one of, her and Jeff Longstrip, that's her, who would give you approval on this?
Correct.
Okay, and you said, so part of your company does the production, and part of it does the placement, okay? So can you describe for me the approval of production versus the approval of placement, and was it different or was the same people?
It was the same people, and I also would have been involved with that portion of the conversation. Typically, what would happen on a production side is I would get the facts from Megan and or Jeff on what we were looking to accomplish politically. I would provide them then with a script. They would make changes to that script, talk about it with the client, let me know then if that is approved. Once I had approval from them, I would move that to production. I would then send that produced spot to Megan and or Jeff to share with the client. They would let me know if any additional changes were needed. And if they were, we would make those changes and then send it back. And if it was approved, then we would send out an invoice for that production. Sometimes it's separate invoices for the buy on that spot. And then how, what are we gonna do with it now that we actually have this ad? That we're looking to put up on broadcast.
What was your relationship with Anna Lippincott?
Anna
Lippincott?
I would speak with Anna on vacation.
Did she have any role in the approval of creative or production or placement?
None.
Okay.
Not to my recollection.
I can put, I'm trying to go fast here because of time. I appreciate, I know you have to change your schedule to be here, but we can go to exhibits, but you provided a set of invoices.
Yes.
That were an exhibit, that were in constant contact. Who would you send those invoices to?
I don't know. I don't have that information saved. I'm guessing that those went to, they might have gone to Megan and Anna, because Anna would have been on the financial side of things. But she would have only been receiving that. She would not have been having a conversation about what that amount should be.
Did you send the invoices or somebody else in your organization?
I would send the invoices to my CFO and our accountant, either our CFO directly or somebody in our accounting office would then send that invoice.
When you did that, so you didn't directly send the invoices, somebody in your accounting department sent the invoices, okay.
But I would give them instructions on what that invoice needed.
Okay. I'm gonna, like, if you look at, there's, I put them, I think, in the, not the other side, the one that's right here. These are the ones I think I would refer to,
Okay.
so I'll tell you which one I'm referring to.
All right.
So if you look at number 13, the 13 in mine. By the way, just as an aside, did you ever do any production or any placement without the authorization of either Megan Fitzmartin or Jeff Longstrip for Allen Freeman? Okay. When you were doing these activities, did you ask whether the candidate was approved?
They were acting as an agent of the campaign.
So they represented to you that they were authorized by the candidate to do what they were doing?
Correct.
But I'm gonna look at this in a second.
Yeah.
When the commercials were filmed in Claremont County, to my understanding,
Yes,
were you present?
I was.
Okay, and who? Okay, who else was present that you remember was there being there?
My team, which would have been my QTs, my director of photography, Scott Myers. Had a makeup artist with us. Yeah, I don't. You want to all keep on the crew?
No, just, but I'm probably more interested in political candidates and otherwise, so Alan, I take it since they were Alan Freeman, Alan Freeman was there.
Alan was there as for was his wife and daughter. Gene Schmidt was there. There were two other candidates there as well. I don't recall.
Okay. So, okay, if you flip into what I handed to you, what's at the bottom is number 245. It's the same invoice you were all looking at earlier that has multiple candidates on it.
Yes.
So this invoice, it is on here for radio production here. So you guys did radio production for Alan Freeman?
Yes.
How did that get done? Because I think that wasn't done, the film and TV commercials were different. Was it radio production at a different time, or how was that done?
So that would have been a script, that would have been a professional voiceover, reading the script.
Okay. Were you personally involved with any of that process or reviewing the creative?
I would have been, I don't recall the app though.
Okay, I'm gonna recall you.
Okay.
I'm gonna recall you. So I'm gonna play a radio spot from Alan Freeman.
Okay.
And, I apologize if the commissioners have already heard this because it's 60-second. I can fast forward, but.
Nick Owens claims he'll represent our values, but if Owens is a true conservative, why do conservative groups reject him? Both Ohio Right to Life and Ohio Value voters won't endorse Nick Owens. And Buckeye Firearms Association denied Nick Owens their top rating. If conservative groups won't support Nick Owens, why should we? Do they know something about Owens' record that we don't? What is fake conservative Nick Owens hiding from us? True conservative Alan Freeman has always represented us. Freeman's protection of the unborn and defense of our values earned him the endorsements of Ohio Right to Life and Ohio Value voters. And Freeman's record safeguarding our Second Amendment rights earned him the highest possible rating from Buckeye Firearms Association. Send someone with the proven record to represent us. Send true conservative Alan Freeman for state representative.
Paid for by the committee to elect Alan Freeman.
Do you recognize that radio spot?
I honestly, I don't.
Okay. Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, it sounds, the cadence and the content, sounds like something that, yes.
We would have done. And then, do you recognize the person who read the disclaimer at the end?
Yeah, that's
Okay, and was it typical for you when you produce radio spots to have the candidate read the disclaimer at the end?
in order to get a candidate raised at stations and be a qualified candidate, the candidate's voice needs to appear on that ad at that point.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
It can either be in the disclaimer or if they read some other part of the ad, that their voice needs to appear on the ad.
Oh, yeah, that's the new information that makes, I think it's very good. So, okay, did you have, well, in those invoices that I handed you, the document 13, which is the ones that you handed over, I added those up, and I probably messed up on my calculator, but the total of all those invoices was about $248,000 when I added up the individual invoices.
For production and airtime.
Yeah, for everything that's in this packet.
Okay.
Okay, and I might have messed up a little bit, I didn't. So you can flip through them, but it's somewhere around $248,000 total. The cover sheet that we provided in your discovery attributes $137,982.51 to Alan Freeman.
Okay.
Can you help us understand how from these, the difference between the 248 number and the 137 number?
2,500, 2,516. Okay. That's invoice 707. So I believe it's going to be the first count and then 6, 7, 8. So that sheet does not, well. So that first sheet contains, so page 241 contains invoices on page 242, 243, 244, and then invoice number 6673, 24,000 would have been from page 245. The portion of that 126,000 only, we'll say approximately 24,000 of that is attributed to the Freeman hearing.
So how,
That's the 24,000 about 10 to the Freeman.
okay, I just want to be, and I'm just looking at round numbers, I'm not looking to do like a big math exercise here. So if I take that one invoice and I take that $24,000 that was Alan Freeman, and the other invoices, I'm going to flip through these here, So if I take the total number I added up, and correct me if I'm double adding something in here,
You will be, but go ahead.
okay, that was like 248 or something like this. All of these other invoices, I guess that's a better way for me to ask the question, Mr. Schweikert, is all these other invoices were exclusively for Allen Freeman or not?
Well, invoice 6669 on page 245, so 5. They're listed there.
Yeah, I said other than that invoice.
Okay.
Because I think that's the only one here that has multiple candidates listed.
Yeah,
All
but-
those other invoices, to your knowledge, are specifically Allen Freeman invoices.
Yes.
Okay, I would appreciate if you could refer to my invoice number because, well, you guys may have, I don't have a page number, so if you could refer to my invoice, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yep, invoice under strategic media placement, invoice 6669. That was Allen Freeman, that is the same as invoice 10823. So from an internal accounting standpoint, that Stratford Media invoice, that is strictly for the radio production, so we actually internally move money out of strategic media placement, because that is strictly a media placement company, and we're moving that over into the production.
Okay, so that's how I would be double counting some of these at the back, et cetera. Okay. But the point, just to be clear, and I want to move on because I don't want to get that big now thing, is that other than that one invoice, the
669.
669, all these other invoices were exclusive to Allen Freeman.
Correct.
Okay. Do you ever place media that's not been approved by a candidate?
Do not, well, unless it's for a corporation or for an entity that is, you know, an expenditure apart from that.
Okay, I want you to look at page at, I'm trying to get fast, but I want to get this stuff is in document number 02, which is my original affidavit. This is the one that probably has a lot of invoices. It has a lot of things from the FCC database.
Yep.
That were Allen Freeman invoices that, or combo invoices, not those Allen Freeman, that went to strategic media placement. Are you?
Technically, it may not have come directly to us, but some of these, we use a program called Strata and led by our media airtime. And in some cases, in order to do the accounting to make sure that everything that is run properly, we actually have to take out that information, because it's not necessarily sent to us.
Okay.
But
Are there, let me ask you a different way. Are there any of these in here that you would recognize that were, and I might not ask it right, you get the question, is that were not work that your firm was involved with?
beginning on what page?
They're exhibits 1 through 6, which are on your copy, it says page 51, on the commissioner's copy, which doesn't have the bottom page numbers. It's the second affidavit, so it's like halfway through. On that end, and it doesn't have a page number, but it's after page 2 of the second affidavit, so the one that has the totals and the invoices listed.
Okay.
But there's a theory, there's a whole chunk of different like invoices and orders on here.
For clarification, there are attached exhibits to exhibits 1 through 4, and also attached as part of these, there are additional exhibits 1 through 4, new exhibits 5 and 6. I assume what we're all referring to are the exhibits 1 through 6, which are the last portion of the exhibit.
Correct. Okay, so those invoices, would you recognize those as being work that your firm was doing with Allen Freeman?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's one in here, I actually want to ask this because it doesn't say strategy media on it. There's one of them that has a different company name on it. I just want to see if there was a relationship between you and that. I want to say it's like something NBD or something like that.
NCC.
NCC, something NCC.
National, those are national networks.
Okay, now is that, but that invoice, that, if I could find it, an invoice that says that at the top, would also be your firm involved with it or some other firm?
So how some cable companies prefer you place cable is through NCC, a national cable repping company.
Okay.
It's a way to more efficiently purchase cable airtime than going to every single little station or, cable outlet.
If anybody sees which one that is.
It's page 72, exhibit 5.
Okay, it's fine, very good. Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, so that one, page 72, which appears as a combination of Schmidt and Freeman thing, that would still been your firm involved with that?
Correct.
Okay, you know the name is different.
Just so we're clear, because ours doesn't have page numbers.
Exhibit 5 in my second affidavit.
Go to political NCC.
I think it's the second to last page of exhibit 2.
It has an exhibit 5 tag at the top, so if you see that one, it's all right. In my original affidavit, the second affidavit, the one with about 80%. Not the one on, the council.
I believe it's from the end in terms of pieces of paper.
There's a couple of them in here, but I just wanted to clarify that those invoices.
It was towards the one right before the iHeartMedia.
It's the one right before it. I just wanted to clarify that even though those had a different company name at the top, those were still things that your firm was involved with.
Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to look at number 14. The director of exhibit 14 in my set. So who is Dave Rankin?
He is, just a media buyer
And how often do you communicate with them, or how often do you work with them?
every day.
Every day? So do you work in the same office, or, okay, in a non-pandemic world? Office, okay. And so do you recognize these kind of documents?
Oh, yeah, Canada.
Okay, so these were filed by your firm, representing that if I look at the middle, and there's several of them here, but that the candidate is a legally qualified candidate and the authorized committee is a legally qualified, that the payment for the broadcast time requested has been furnished by law. So from your perspective, these were accurately filed?
Correct.
And you did not know that money was not, I'm not saying it was, but you had no reason to believe that money would not be coming from the candidate.
Well, before, so political advertising, stations will not take political advertising without payment upfront. So they're providing us along with the payment.
So that's interesting, because I only one time in my life ever tried to buy something on cable, which was a disaster. But it's become very clear to me that those places will not run any advertising unless they're paid up front. Correct?
That's correct.
So at the time that you filed these, then you already had the money? Or you generally would have had the money, or no, you had the money?
Either had the money or money was getting route or, you're filing. Usually the committee is with the buy and the check all at the same time. That's typically how that works.
So I'm not saying your firm did this, but if a firm filed these without having the money, that would not be proper.
It would be unnecessary. It would be strange.
To file these without having the money.
Yes, why would you, I want to do paperwork unnecessarily.
So when you had got the money for these, so like this one is, what is it, looking for a date on here. So these guys, so this one is February 14th. Because I'm looking at the first one in that set, February 14th is the date that it was filed. So that means on February 14th, you had money or had money in transit to pay for these, for paper, whatever that was.
Not necessarily, but we wouldn't be placing a buy.
You do it that way.
And we wouldn't be doing the same work on this, we're placing a buy. We would be placing a buy once we actually had money from the client.
So how come? So that, when I look back at the other document that has invoices in it, the only invoice, the earliest date on the invoice is February 21, 2020.
Okay.
But correct me, this is, I'm looking back at number 13.
A week earlier.
Okay, so now the placement was, Abraham typically signed it on February 14th. The earliest invoice in this stack of invoices is from February 21st.
Okay.
So how could you have had the money if you hadn't even invoiced at that point?
We're not placing the buy yet. This doesn't say that there's a buy
Okay.
going with it. This just says that, Alan Freeman is identifying the actual campaign. So the reason why you do qualify for candidate rates.
Okay,
And so, we're saying, Alan Freeman is a qualified candidate, alerting that station. Is he a federal candidate? Because rules are different for federal candidates and even state candidates. And so, we're alerting them that we may be placing by.
okay, and that,
And sometimes we may need to get rates from stations. They may say, well, if you want candidate rate, you need to actually supply us with, map data.
beforehand, that,
Typically, we do enough work on the country that people know that there's a column level, not place.
okay. Have you ever had a case where you found out after the fact that money that was used for a buy was not coming from the candidate?
Never.
Okay, so you never had to go, if you did, how would you handle that?
I'm not sure how that happened. I mean, I guess to me, we are being told that here's a wire coming to you from the Alan Freeman campaign. Okay, so it's Alan Freeman's money that we're then sending out to multiple stations. Instead of them paying stations directly, they pay us. We split up those, the big check, the 5 little checks, and send that out to stations.
So can you look at that at number 15 in that stack? This is number 15 in my exhibit. This is your, hopefully do you recognize this as your affidavit?
I do.
But I believe that there you said that content may be invoices, not an agreement.
Correct. They were acting as the agent for the Alan Freeman campaign.
How did you know that?
Because I had multiple conversations with them where they approved Alan Freeman's ads, and like with the radio spot where we, Alan Freeman's voice be on there, actually got me the file for Alan Freeman. It's, they're acting in a role what I would classify in a political campaign as a general consultant. So they're essentially the general directing the strategy and overseeing the operation.
So in that case, you would generally trust, as I think I would, that when this is happening and I get the check from Constant Contact, that it's coming from the candidate because that's what's been represented to you.
Correct.
Okay, and the people that would have represented that to you were Jeff Longstreth and Megan Fitzmartin?
Correct.
Was Anna Lippenford ever involved in those representations?
She would not have been the one approving any ads. I would have been sending her invoices once I was told by Jeff or Megan
Okay,
that these were approved.
so just to make sure I understand correctly, at the time that Megan and or Jeff would approve something, you would be having a conversation to the effect of, this is what you're approving and this is how much it's gonna cost.
Yes.
Would they also, would they have also, or did they ask you questions about where is this gonna be placed, how often?
Sure. Some candidates will ask to see the buy and what we are proposing. And the buy would be.
Well, I want to be specific to this. So you weren't talking to the candidates. So I'm asking about Megan Fitzmartin and Jeff Longstreth ask you questions about where was it gonna run, how many times, that kind of thing.
No, I don't recall ever having, I mean, other than broadcast TV or cable TV, I don't recall ever getting into the weeds of, oh, hey, we're gonna run CNBC before on the AM rotator, and then ESPN weekend rotator, you know.
Okay. Did anybody ask you from, that you saw as being associated with the campaign about where they were gonna be placed, the frequency of placement?
I mean, Jeff and Megan would have conversations on, where they'd be placed something on broadcast or cable and what market and flight dates and amounts.
Okay, but the things like when TV stations give you, here's a preliminary plan and stuff like that, they wouldn't see that stuff, you wouldn't have.
They could, I don't recall ever sending that.
Okay, okay. Okay, so.
I've heard clients I work for that always want to see that. I don't recall Jeff or Megan ever asking for that information or things on.
During that whole period, did you have any interaction with Alan Freeman at all?
At the shoot,
At the shoot? Did you introduce yourself to Alan Freeman at the shoot?
I've known Alan for, I'll say a dozen years.
A dozen years. So what, describe the relationship you had with Alan over a dozen years?
Just through campaigns in Hamilton County and Cincinnati, his role in Republican politics. I've known Alan for a long time.
Okay, so you didn't need to introduce yourself to them because you already knew each other. How about Megan Fitzmartin? How well did you know her, or how well do you know her? In that period?
I mean, I've been working at that point with Megan for, I'm gonna guess, 3 years.
Did you ever, what about Jeff Longstreth?
I've known Jeff since 1999.
Have you ever had a situation involving them giving you approval where they had to come back to you saying the candidate did not actually approve this?
That's my recollection.
Would you think that they would ever do that?
Objection, how do you know what they would do?
Withdraw? Okay, so I'm gonna play an ad, there's two ads with the time speed, I'm gonna play one of them, one of the two ads. For you, and hopefully you'll be able to identify it. I'm gonna play the short one. So, take your time.
A small business owner, a strong conservative, abandonment. Alan Freeman will bring these same conservative values to the Ohio House, building business in a better Ohio for all our families. Alan Freeman for state representative.
Now that's a shorter one. You recognize that as the product of your company?
I do.
And you were present at all of those shooting locations that were, other than, I'm talking the video shooting.
Yeah. There was one shot where she was stuff in the background. Yeah, that I don't recall being at that shot, but the one before it.
One in the restaurant. Well, that's.
One at the restaurant, one with family, and then the one with the table, yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, here's the restaurant one. So do you remember what restaurant that was?
I don't.
Okay. All right, but you recognize this and you were at least, you were at, let me, if I remember right, you were at the restaurant.
I was.
You were at the house. The. Not that house. Not that. Not this one. This one.
Yes,
Is that Alan Freeman's house, to your knowledge?
I don't believe so.
You know whose house it was?
Somebody affiliated with one of the campaigns.
Do you remember which campaign?
I don't, if somebody else was there, I don't know if it was Alan.
Do you remember which other candidates were there? Or any of the other candidates that were there?
Gene Schmidt and, guy with three names. Who was in the company. And then comes Coach Slater and another candidate. It was either a friend of Alan's or a friend of Gene's.
So did you, at that time, they were just there to observe filming an Alan Freeman commercial, or were you filming commercials for all of that?
We were filming commercials for all four candidates.
Okay, and that'd be quite popular if people showed up just to watch you filming a commercial. And did the commercials for the other candidates, do you remember which ones, did they all get used, not used?
I don't recall.
Okay.
From memory, I'm gonna say Alan was used, and then footage for Gene was used, and the other two were not. I believe one of the other candidates wound up dropping out,
Okay.
not running.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna play another video. What was your firm's relationship with Growth and Opportunity PAC or Generation Now or any of those entities?
I believe that we did work over them. I was on the other side of firewall, so I can't speak to what happened or transpired there.
So when you describe for me what you mean by the other side of a firewall or the firewall?
So we have what is called a firewall setup whereby we keep everything separate, for sake of not having coordination. So you don't, you have different people working on the accounts, you have different media buyers, on the accounts. And the only way that I would actually know what was going on there is when things became public. So like if they were to place a buy, I wouldn't know that until it actually public law.
What about the production?
What about production?
Where is there a firewall on production?
There would be, I mean, production, in some ways, like using the post office, but in terms of
So I'm thinking like a for production, let me give you an example.
We would have a different producer on it, but in terms of like an audio engineer or somebody like that. I mean,
Cameraman, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be I don't remember their ads. I don't think any of their ads were shot, but they might have been.
So, but in theory, if you were producing ads, not in theory, right? If you were producing ads for a PAC, like Growth and Opportunity PAC versus for a candidate, would the video production be separate for those two ads? Or the same people doing the video production for both?
How would you define video production?
Filming, maybe I'm not using the right word. You probably know.
Well, I'm typically on third party ads, I'm doing, typically not filming those. Typically they don't have budget for that, and sometimes if they do, if one of their ads, they tell you if it was filmed or not.
Well, I'm gonna play you an ad. That, and remember, some of this, we can flip back and forth and look at the imagery of the two different ads, but I'm gonna play, this is exhibit 23, which I played once before for the commissioner. Okay, so were you present for the filming of any of that?
The B-roll imagery that was used, I was present during some of that filming for the B-roll imagery that was used. There is, I'm guessing that typically what happens there is you will pull down that footage, if that stuff is made available online. People pull down footage all the time. There's a famous case with Mr. McConnell, where because you're familiar with this, in the 60 seconds B-roll of Mitch.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, it's B-roll without any kind of text on screen. Sometimes we're doing third-party ads, what we will do is, if we don't have that available to us, we will actually find the commercial that they are running and literally lift portions of that. We have a system where we can capture that and then we put it into our own ad. If we need positive imagery of a candidate that we are asking people to support.
So would you describe footage without any? You might know better than terms, so I don't want to say something. But like if I go forward to one of these. Okay, like that, okay? So when it has this chironic or whatever you call that at the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that, you talk about lifting it.
So that would then put on at post for whoever edited that spot would have done that. So the original footage would not have had any kind of text on.
So if I go back to the other ad,
Mhm.
and I don't need to do this if we all agree that the other ad also had the chironic at the bottom.
It was different. The orange and blue and this.
I'm not talking about the chironic, the look of the chironic, I'm just saying each of the two sets of that footage had titling down at the bottom. Is there a way to remove the titling so that the footage can be reused? So in order.
Not unless we could cut and zoom in, like in this example, we could cut and zoom in on Allen and cut that out, but then you also lose quality.
Okay. When I'm gonna flip back to this other one here, and there's a longer one, and I hope not to have to look at it, just so we save time, but back to this one, and I'll look at the restaurant portion of this one. And
A small business owner, a small conservative, abandoned, Allen Freeman will bring these same conservative values.
It's the restaurant footage.
There you go.
Here.
Conservative.
Okay, so that was, you were present when this footage was shot?
Correct.
Okay, and would you, and we can flip back and forth, but as far as I can tell, when I look at it, I'm not a professional, but they're not the same footage because the camera angle is actually slightly different when it pans across.
It would have been the same shoot, would have been a different take. So,
Okay.
we don't just take a camera and go by once, I mean, you'll do.
So how would, again, I'm not in the history, but is the footage that you don't use from Pace, does that become, do you make that publicly available somewhere to people?
Oftentimes we do.
Why?
So that if there's somebody out there that wants to help us, they can have imagery that we like.
Describe for me what you mean by somebody helping you.
I mean, if there's someone that wants to alert voters as to the benefits of Allen Freeman and why Allen Freeman is the right choice. If they want to go looking for good imagery of Allen,
That would be somebody like Growth and Opportunity Fund,
it would be.
okay? But if you're, would the person in your organization, could you describe a firewall, doing that versus this, would they get that footage from some independent, publicly available place, or would they get?
It would be, I'm guessing it's probably on Allen's website. Okay.
No, so
It would have been somewhere publicly available, either on
I
YouTube link or.
I assure you, I've thoroughly scrubbed, and I have never found any of this video publicly available anywhere. So if you are aware of it being publicly available, could your firm would have had to put it someplace?
No, we would have said it.
I would object to the point of this question.
Yeah.
If Mr. Hicks wishes to testify, should wait till he's testified.
Same.
So did your firm typically put that footage out on YouTube or other places?
No.
Did you?
Where, we usually give that to the campaign.
And when, in the case of Allen Freeman, so you would have given unused footage to what you saw as a campaign,
To Casa.
which would have been Megan Fitzmartin and Jeff Longstreth. And then they would have used that footage and come back to your firm for a growth and opportunity spot potentially, or somebody would.
No.
So in order for a person to get that footage,
Yes.
they would have to get it from the way you described it, and I wanted to make sure I'm very clear. They would have had to get that footage from Megan Fitzmartin or Jeff Longstreth.
No.
Where would they otherwise have gotten it?
Online. I don't know where, I don't know where Allen Freeman's footage went. Typically it is, typically there would be an Allen Freeman YouTube page, which have all of Allen Freeman's ads, and they have that as well.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, but so just so I'm clear, your testimony today is that your firm in no way currently shares video footage between the firewall portion, the work with PACs versus work with candidates.
Right.
Okay. And in this case, you would have provided the video footage to Megan Fitzmartin and Jeff Longstreth.
Right.
Would you have provided it to anybody else? Or do you recall providing it to anybody else? Okay. Okay. So the part of your firm that does, you describe a firewall, and I work in IBM, and we have firewalls between people that work with Oracle software and other software companies, and SAP and so forth, so I'm aware of like firewalls and organizations. How big are your offices?
Big,
Square footage,
each individual office or
the whole, comment of the whole office. Generally speaking,
oh gosh, one building is
pretty big.
large.
So are these firewalls or the people involved, how are they firewall? Are they like on different floors? IBM, we have them in different offices, so they wouldn't even be in the vicinity of each other.
First of all, you gotta have one person speak at a time. You gotta let him finish his question, then you'll get whatever time you need, sir, okay? Go ahead, Mr. Hicks, finish your question if you would.
So my question is described to me from a human capital standpoint, how does your company maintain that firewall?
We have, right now, I'm trying to think if there's anybody in a shared office. We have, I think, 2 accountants in the same office. Technically a mail writer and a TV copywriter in the same office. But we have people in individual offices, and everybody has their own computer. Don't have shared computers.
And I would give you an example, then I'll ask a question. In the IBM world, you know, we have like the people that work with Oracle are in Austin, Texas, the people are San Jose, the people that work with SAP are in a different location, and we could actually go back and prove that they were not communicating with each other.
I would object to the form of the question.
I haven't asked the question yet.
Yes, I would object to this form because you testified. And I would ask to be asked a direct question so that we can get the testimony from the witness, not from the question.
Overall, I think he's trying to get, but go ahead. That's
Right, so is there any physical measure that you take to make sure that this firewall between people is enforced within your offices, such as, you know, this part of the firewall is on a different floor or in a different set of offices, or are those people commingled together?
Everybody has their own office. And all of our media buying is on the same floor, all of our creative writing is in the same building. They're all in individual offices.
But they would generally see each other as colleagues?
Yeah, we have offices, Columbus, Ohio. We have an office, we have two buildings, in Delaware, an office downtown, an office downtown at the time, an office in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Have you ever made any measures that, for example, segregate that our PAC people are going to be in Austin and our this people are going to be there, so we can always show that we were maintaining a firewall?
We do not, we have internal written policies, we have annual training on firewall policy.
Okay. So, what was your connection or relationship to JPL and Associates?
They were fine.
And who did you deal with from JPL and Associates? And what was the difference then between dealing with Megan Fitzpatrick and Jeff Longstreth as JPL and Associates versus Constant Contact?
It's a great question.
I'd love to hear a great answer.
Well, yeah, I mean, there'd be many times where I would be confused myself. So if I from an invoicing side, oftentimes I would invoice the wrong column. And I would be told, oh, that's just going to JPL, you should be going to Constant.
Did they ever establish with you any criteria that define what was JPL versus invoices like this? When you see a dog, you know, it says dog, it should go to Constant Contact. When it's a cat, it should go to JPL.
I recall having a conversation with Megan where she at one time laid out, hey, these are the JPL and Constant Contact clients. And everything should go through that company. But I don't recall specifics as far as, you know, were those the legislative incumbents, not incumbents, were they folks running for office, for other officers?
So you would think it would more likely be based on the candidate or the particular campaign?
For my recollection.
Okay, versus like PACs went through JPL and candidates went through Constant Contact or anything like that?
I don't know.
So they represented to you that Alan Freeman was a Constant Contact client? And thus you build Constant Contact for his work?
That's who we built, yes.
Okay. Okay. Might be close to done. It's up here. I want to make sure I cover my rest. In the 2020 campaign, the primary campaign, are you aware of clients who you build, clients related to team household or lay household type clients that you build JPL for their media services versus, or did, as far as you know, they were all built to Constant Contact?
I don't know.
Okay. During that cycle, did your firm have, as far as you know, notable billings to JPL for candidates in the Ohio primary or Republican primary?
You don't.
Okay. When Jeff Longstreth was indicted, did that come as a surprise to you or not?
I was surprised.
From your experience, was he a ethical person to work with?
But I don't think that the ethics that Jeff Longstreth his actions actually.
I think the allege that that you've made that constant content that things were not authorized, and Jeff Longstreth did things without authorization from the candidate, we go to that whether Mr. Schweikert had any issues with the ethics of Jeff Longstreth as it relates to working with.
What's the state of objection?
Is there anything, any people other than Jeff Longstreth, Megan Fitzmartin, and Anna Lippincott, in the limited role that you described, Lippincott, I don't understand one, okay, that you worked with from either of these organizations?
Yeah.
Did you ever work with or aware of anybody representing to you that they were the HRCC?
I'm your HCC.
As far as it goes to candidates in the March of the 2020 primary, did anybody ever represent to you that you're aware of that they were representing the HRCC as it related to those candidates in question? Or Mr. Freeman or any other?
Mr. Freeman, no. Other candidates, I don't
You don't.
recall. I don't remember the hospital being involved in any crime matters.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. I appreciate you. I really appreciate it. I know you changed your schedule to be here, so I really appreciate it.
Mrs. Spicer, I have a couple things to just to clear up. I think there were some questions asked about how far away and how one group of people can be involved in express advocacy for a candidate, where another group of people can be involved in doing independent expenditures, advocating for the same candidate. Was there any strategic communication back and forth about how that could be done?
There's not.
But was there any financial sharing back and forth about how much was going to be spent on any kind of person?
There's not, we would have known 100% when those actual buys were placed on TV or any public disclosures were made.
And do you know whether or not the Democratic as well as Republican groups commonly post video and still shots that can be used for independent candidates?
It is very common practice.
You know whether or not the Federal Elections Commission has in fact promulgated standards on how to make sure that you have a good product?
They don't, it can't be followed the standards.
Is it also the case that if independent video or audio or stills are posted, that people who oppose that candidate can take those same stills, distort them if they want to, and produce an attack?
We do it all the time.
Now, did the strategy group or either of the entities that are part of the strategy group companies have anything to do with Alan Freeman's fund? His campaign fees?
No.
Would you advise or have communications with Alan Freeman's campaign at all about the financial reporting? Do you have any knowledge and details of what communication there were or were not between Alan Freeman and Constant Contact about what they're doing?
I do not have knowledge or details of those conversations that may or may not take place.
And have you ever seen any bills sent to Alan Freeman or his team?
I have not.
Have you ever sent or seen any notices of any kind of contribution on behalf of the Alan Freeman?
I have not.
Yeah, I assume you agree, you can't report what you don't know.
I would agree with that.
Now, there was one, Megan Freeman, or excuse me, Megan Fitzgerald. It's more. Megan Fitzgerald, testified earlier today. And if I recall the testimony correctly, she said she never signed off on any amount of the media funds. But do you know whether or not that is accurate?
I would have received notification from either her or Jeff as to what took place and what was replaced. So I would have come from she or Jeff.
And as you sit here today, do you recall whether it came from her as opposed to Jeff or Jeff as opposed to her? Or not?
I don't recall specifically who would have approved that, but it would have been one.
She also testified that a lot of people, particularly when they're on the phone, confuse Ann Lippincott with Megan, Fitzmark.
There you go.
Have you ever had that issue of talking to one inside your phone? That's all.
It's any redirect.
Yeah, just real quick, because he made some statements about, he had 2 questions about being involved with the campaign finance. So I think, because we don't have a definition of campaign involved, but to be clear, as it relates to things that would go into his campaign finance, you were sending invoices, you were getting approval, and you were putting disclaimers in the FCC databases that would authorize these spends.
That is all accurate.
Okay.
I have no knowledge as to what.
What do you do with that? Right, so, okay.
I would think if you shouldn't talk over the witness when the witness is including his answer.
I can't disagree, but try not to speak over each other. So, think about your heart at the court reporter.
Okay. Just to clarify, he asked you questions about who approved. So to your knowledge, would you say that both, now my brain might be up on Jeff Longshore and Megan Fitzmark were at times individually or separately, or grouped together involved in approvals that they gave you?
Approvals would have come from either Megan or Jeff.
But during the course of the campaign,
And or Jeff.
during the course of this campaign, it wasn't that it was always Jeff or it was always Megan. Your knowledge, your memory of it would be that they were both involved in that, or it went back and forth, or whoever, but one of those 2 gave you approval on each one.
One of those gave me approvals on any expenditure.
Okay. And when they were giving you the approvals, what kind of detail would you be giving them? Would you be just talking with them, it's gonna be 40 grand, or would you be giving them something printed, or I sent you a spreadsheet with the totals in it?
It depends on the expenditure and the timing. We would have had conversations though about dollar amounts and timeframes. Typically, when the media buys would be made, we would have here's the dollar amount, and out the run beginning Tuesday for 7 days or for 10 days.
With those discussions before these things, for approval, be just verbal, or would your firm create some document that they would send to them saying, this is what we're looking at doing?
Oftentimes they're approval, but I would have created an invoice to get paid based upon their direction.
Like the invoices, the ones that you said that.
Correct.
So my last question, and Honorary Commissioner asked before about the level of detail on the invoices. Is the level of detail provided to Alan Freeman typical of the level of, the constant content? Is that typical of the level of detail that you provide people on invoices? So that was the number 13. Like the $95,000. Greg went to look at it for, just to help clear this up is.
Broadcast service, Cincinnati. It depends on the campaign. This would not be uncommon. Frequently, we will have flight dates in there, but I would say more than half the time, we actually have a listing of, I don't know where it says, this is project, town improvement, and then broadcast. So we would have an application as to who those dollars were attributed to.
Is there a standard level of detail? Like if I came to you with some big campaign, like our normal thing is to do this level of detail, and if it's this, Then is it the normal thing or is this?
I mean, I would say normal would just be, broadcast airtime or cable airtime or radio airtime.
Very simple like this.
Because I usually I can provide, if you want more detail, I will actually provide you having much more greater detail than something that's an invoice.
To your knowledge, that either Megan Fitzmartin or Jeff Longford ever asked you for more detail?
I don't recall.
All right, that's all.
I received calls for his book.
All right, Mr. Brown.
My understanding is that bills from strategic group of London companies were sent to Constant Council. Were any bills sent to Howard Creek?
No, directly out.
And I apologize for testing memory about who approves what, but do you have any specific memory of Megan Fitzmartin approving the amount of buys? Or not?
I know Megan or Jeff would have approved.
And I also understood that before you can actually purchase airtime, you got to pay, which means before you start forwarding a lot of money, you get the money from the client. Right?
Correct, yeah, we do not want things that happen.
Now, who, were you involved in that transfer of money from Constant Contact or JPL or wherever it came from? So that you would have the money to purchase the advertising? Or was somebody else involved as strategically on that mechanical aspect?
I don't quite understand the question.
But I'm probably speaking in a confusing fashion. If, whether it was Jeff, Longford, or May, Fitzmartin, whoever it was, that we want you to spend $120,000 on this media. You would say, fine, send me $120,000. Now, would you say that? Or would somebody else from your company say that? And who at the JPL Constant Contact would they say that?
So I would have a conversation like on invoice 6707. Where I look at this amount, it's probably 1,000 or trading points broadcast airtime in Cincinnati. We would have the conversation, hey, what's it gonna take to do a full message delivery in the Cincinnati media market? We would have a conversation, I would say it's gonna be $95,000. And they'd say, sometimes, great, go ahead and invoice me. Sometimes people say, I don't have that, what can you do for 75,000? Sometimes they say, well, I have 120, how else do you spend the other $25,000? So we had a conversation at that point, but at the conclusion of those conversations, we would have an agreement on, this is what we're gonna do. I would send out an invoice or have an invoice sent to them. Once that money arrives, typically either via check or via wire, I would get a notification as well as the media buyer on my account. And we would then execute that media buy for plan.
So it sounds like you have some familiarity that candidates are more than willing to authorize to spend money they have, but they might have constraints if they don't have the money.
Yes.
Nothing for them.
One last for you.
Hold on, let's see if there's any questions from commissioners at this stage.
I do have a question. Yes, my question goes to the fire. Yeah. I'm just intrigued by how you keep separate the information that some part of the organization gets versus the other part of the organization. Can you share further for both the then now, right, PAC and the SMP?
We have a public drive available to everyone.
Is your copier?
Copier. I think I have a copier in my office. Those people, people, about half an hour.
But is there a general copier where large activity?
There are a couple.
And those large organizations share that those large properties?
Maybe.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah. You had testified previously that strategic media placement was hired to produce an ad for the previous.
Previous to today?
No, just.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, check the date.
Yeah, it seems like. You then said that once the ad was produced, you would then run it by Megan or Jeff
Yes,
to get their approval.
yes,
And then they had to get their approval from their client.
correct.
Who was their client?
Alan Freeman.
Okay, so they had to check with Alan Freeman
Yes.
on the makeup of the ad and gets extensively the cost.
Yeah, I work with general consultants all over the United States, and it's very common that communication will be me to the general consultant. The general consultant then to the candidate. They will have that discussion in terms of perhaps what's happening locally, what other factors are going into their decision on what they're doing, and then report that back to me.
I'm sorry, but would you, I understand the statement you just made, but would you really affirmatively know?
No, that was
I'm distinguishing between what's normal and practice, but do you affirmatively know this instance? On these instances?
I don't, I make an assumption based on my trust of the general consultant.
And then I have a question. You said that your confirmation, you have conversations about the cost and production and that kind of thing. So you would have, even though you can't recall specific conversations, whether it be 6,707 or 6,669. But you, at some point, Megan did say to you, I realize this is gonna be $95,000 for an
Megan or Jeff.
or Jeff, correct, yes. So, but at some point, both of them had said yes.
One or both of them said yes.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask a question, I'm gonna approach it if I can, because I think it'll be faster for me to do so.
Okay.
Fine with doctors.
This is what was previously marked as exhibit 2,
Okay.
and then it's exhibit 1 through 6, part of exhibit 2. And this appears to me to be, what would be background support for your invoices, is that what I'm looking at?
So this is a station affidavit. So this is what we would get back from the station after we put in our buy. So we use software called Strata. We take that information from Strata, we push a buy out to the stations along with the check. And then I know there's one piece here. But actually, have writing on it.
But it's that kind of the only documentation that would make up the whole, the invoice.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
And the invoice that includes your markup of the buy, correct?
It does. Which is also shown on each of those individual invoices from the station. If it's the standard agency commission issued from the station.
Okay.
Anybody else in the commission have any questions? Mr. Hicks, do you have any follow-up?
Had a quick redirect on with something that the Ray brought up. The invoice that I'm looking for, it's still, I'm gonna get it right. Brock is on the one that was the $95,000 invoice.
Yeah.
Okay. The date on it is March 9th, 2020. So they would have received this invoice before the media started to hit.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, so March 9th is, okay, so did Jeff Malmstreth or Megan Fitzmartin ever express to you that the candidate didn't have this, there's any appropriate amount of money in their campaign, in their bank account for these?
No, the assumption would have been that there was money there to pay, otherwise we.
Your assumption would be they would be approving it.
Hold on, can't talk at the same time.
Otherwise, I have.
Okay, they never expressed really to Alan Freeman any concern with his getting paid, having the money for any of these buys.
They never expressed such.
Okay, and then last, and then I'm done on this. The one that I just intrigued by this one that has multiple candidates on it, it's dated February 21, 2020. The primary original date was March 17th. Okay. And it has production time on here, and it has airtime. Would that one should not do your commercials until that period, that late in the cycle for the primary, or would people normally do them earlier? Since the primary original vote date was supposed to be March 17th.
At this point, you're looking at 17, 25 days out from election day, so that would be for probably the final 3 weeks of the campaign. And Mr. Hicks, I would love it if campaigns were organized enough and had money that they could actually place things ahead of time. That would make my life a lot easier, but if this is typical, and I mean, even going into the final weekend, and that Friday before election day, I will oftentimes be asked, oh, hey, I have extra X amount of money, where can I put it?
Okay, but the production, where this the invoice that would have encompassed the production of the ads that I showed?
One of them. Well, no.
Down 3 minutes.
The
I don't see another production.
the radio spot, so it's within radio production only, not TV production.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I have.
Ryan, follow up?
I do just, can follow eventually to a question from Commissioner Lowe. Is it the case that occasionally after you buy and pay for broadcast media, and they send those invoices, a month later, they send rebates because they didn't actually do everything that the additional invoices that they do?
Yes.
And is that usual or unusual?
In a competitive primary environment, it is common.
And does that mean that even these initial invoices, you can't know whether that's the exact amount that was expended or ultimately owed on behalf of the county?
Correct.
Commissioner, anything else? That's Mr. Schweitzer.
All right, it is, lean towards the 3 o'clock hour, which you know, means that we would have time to take any additional witnesses.
See, I'm gonna go to witness it today.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Well, for one point, I do not intend to call Mr. Spicer again. I think that he can be excused in future. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Brock.
Thank you. I called Dave Lord as a very strict witness, but I don't even know if he's
I think
here.
we have to wrap up the rest of our
Okay.
meeting, so I'd say we have to push that for this time.
Dave Ward is down the hall.
I'll come on now.
Up here towards the front of the desk. As far as your binders, the two from Mr. Hicks, the one from Mr. Bragg, do you want to take them with you? Do you want to leave them here? If you leave them here, I would recommend at least put your name on them, because I'm sure you made notes. And that way you don't get his notes, he'll get your notes, and, so just let me know whatever you guys want to do and I'll.
I do not want to take it.
I'm sorry, which, yeah, if you want to put it on the inner pocket. Is there an inner pocket of the? Yeah, either one, whichever one. Yeah, that way it's in there for you.
Okay, so Mr. Hicks, all right, we're at the point now, I think, we're continuing. And I guess with the commission's consent, we're going to reconvene, generally, on October 28th. As for the particular matter, coming back to October 28th, everybody is okay with that?
Well, yeah, what if we, yes, so I think there would be a dependency on the couple more key witnesses, I think I have, because I don't know their schedules. But I'd like to, I 100% agree, but what happens?
Okay, obviously, Ms. Jones, one, Mr. Ward is another. And who else is there?
Steve Caraway is the important one.
Are they here right now?
Steve Caraway is, and I could go into it.
Yeah, why don't you ask for this? We can inform them.
They might have heard one.
Tavares, if you confirm you're available on the 28th.
28th, I'm okay.
Okay, good. I'm just gonna throw that out there, we're all.
As long as I'm out by 4 o'clock.
Well, that's
Did
what,
we-
and that was what I was asking.
Yeah.
Did we want to potentially start in general, and address this starting at, let's say, 9 o'clock? I'm just throwing that out there.
What's on the agenda? Everything else is first. So we
Um,
go an hour and take a break and
yeah, then do this for an hour, then I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility, because we've done that before.
so some of it would depend to me on the amount of time you think the agenda next meeting is going to take and the amount of time that the parties anticipate, not holding them strictly to it, or how much it's going to.
I mean, I think that this, again, I give sensitivity to the individuals that are traveling, but I think that and handling those other matters, and then it's just clean. It's just clean.
But they're already noticed to 10, those.
They're noticed, so
We would start at
We
9.
notice them, because it's.
Well, and honestly, well, we've done that.
Yeah,
And we've got 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Right.
so,
It's something that's clean.
yeah, it is, I'm not gonna say we couldn't do
The
it.
mail and get there.
Right.
Well, don't depend on them.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
Well, that's what
We
we-
all know that.
So, I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying, we could start at 9 o'clock if everybody else is okay with that, particularly persons that are traveling a little bit more than, you know.
I will let you know that McDonald's on.
So we're gonna start the next meeting at 9 with the original agenda and finish as soon as we're done with that, start this. Is that the plan?
That is kind of what we're heading toward,
And
yes.
make sure that we have a stop time at 4 o'clock.
No.
We 30.
Okay.
I was gonna say, yeah, I thought I heard that you had to be somewhere at 4 o'clock, so we're again stopping at 3:30.
We just agreed to arrange that when how it's gonna work. You know, I might need time to just have a little break, 15-minute break for you guys to set up the stuff. It's just in your,
You
I don't want to
can
disrupt your
You can
meeting.
do that while we're having our meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to disrupt your meeting by.
We should be, yeah, I mean, we should be fine.
But no comment.
Feel free to disrupt.
And comments.
No comment.
We're gonna read.
I was trying to follow up.
Out of bringing breakfast from McDonald's. That's what I heard. I heard about it.
Brad, for once.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
We brought.
Comment.
Yeah. And so obviously, Mr. Ward, Mr. Caraway, Ms. Jones, you're going to be called as witnesses. We're sorry for today, but, October 28th will be the next meeting. At some point shortly after 9 a.m., we'll do our general business again, similar to how we did this morning. There'll be a few more cases on the agenda, although I don't think there's a whole lot. There is a financial aid cases we'll get to go through. There's 2 distinct cases
I would say
on
that
the
we
agenda.
should firmly start Hicks versus 3 at 10 a.m.
Right.
That way,
Yeah.
we're not gonna lose this issue of the waiting, but we're not finished where
Right.
We'll continue with breaks until 3:30.
Correct. Okay.
Um,
Okay, thank you very much for your patience and your willingness and your diligence in hanging out there. Now you know what Mr. Price has gone through over the last few weeks, in terms of what he has been outside the meeting.
We'll let Mr. Kreitz know about the meeting change.
Yeah.
For the 28th of the day, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody's.
Right. And I tried to call up the agenda for. Just to give you. I know there's.
For all 3 of your binders.
I know there's finance cases that I'll have. There'll be 1 or 2 that say attend. And then this.
Is there anything else?
First time. I figured that was pretty interesting to get back up. We did do a
Talk about what.
All right, is there any other comments from other commission members? October 28th is next. I don't have anything else.
Motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
I think that was unanimous. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
When are we gonna have our, conversation about your?
Well, because that was supposed to be on the 28th.
Yeah.
That's
it's
what
gonna
it's
be-
gonna
be. Now it'll be on the 28th.
Sorry.
Stay on good behavior.
Bill, just know we're gonna do a retro.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
Say that.
Yeah.
Do a retro. I don't believe in it.
Oh, yeah, sure. Say that.
Be unfair to them either. You'll compensate for.
I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Then it looks like you're.
When do you have a? I don't have one there. Oh, okay.
Which work?
I got.
Referred.
Oh, you have.
Anyway. Also.
You can have a whole house. With the all ready for the family room. All ready for the dining room, our house.
Yeah, I could have made that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
What did you learn?
Learn more about the divine.
Right, the 3 o'clock.